This is the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. You're about to discover the most entertaining rock music podcast on the planet, filled with the best stories straight from rock musicians from all over the world. Rock music isn't dead. It's getting better and better. It's time to start paying attention again. With that said, let's get this party started.
The mountain's gonna rise and fall by me.
Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where I'm going to be speaking with Steve and Bryan of the Washington D.C. based punk band American Television today. The band has been releasing music since 2013, so happy 10-year anniversary there, I suppose. And their 2016 debut EP, Reaction, was a pretty bombastic introduction onto the scene. Band has put out another EP called Adolescence, which was cover songs, which is very cool, back in 2021, as well as a full-length album back in 2020 called Watch It Burn. And even better, they just released their brand new sophomore LP called Scars on September 22nd, and it is absolutely killer. The album reminds me sound-wise of the Copyright's last album, Alone in a Dome, which anyone who listens to this podcast may know won the 2021 Punk Album of the Year from Powered by Rock for our Powered by Rock Music Awards. So that's some very high praise. They also have a very cool video for their song Bittersweet that I'm excited to play for you during the show today, so stay tuned for that. So hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey Isaac, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Nice to meet you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I obviously want to just pretty much dig in. So like the first segment here I always have is called what I call the best story to tell, but I want to dig into this new album because it fucking rips. Like I think a lot of people are going to like this album. It is called Scars. And, you know, like I said, it's pretty much what I consider an absolute ripper. So I think sonically you guys do have a bit of that Midwest punk sound, but mixed with that East Coast cynicism of, you know, that New York, Jersey, Philadelphia kind of vibe. So do you guys have any specific influences on the music in general? And then were you steered in any particular direction with this album?
It's funny you say New York and New Jersey because I'm from New York originally and Bryan is from New Jersey originally.
Yeah, so. There you go. So DC based, but not from originally there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, musically, copyrights are a huge influence on us. Like just a great Midwestern punk band, like Dopamines as well. Even Dear Landlord, like their one record, has always been something that's been such a great, like straightforward pop punk record. But as far as East Coast vibes go, I think Bryan and I would both probably cite Avail as like a major influence on us. That grittiness, that sort of that poppy hardcore, if you will.
Sure,
Bryan. But what do you got, man?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll talk about the cynicism a little bit rather than the musical influences. So, you know, we do our band as a hobby. We try to do it as much as we can. We have full-time jobs that you probably picked up listening to the record. There's a lot of themes about trying to make your way through the corporate world and pay attention to your job a little bit and how depressing that can be at times, which I think, you know.
Yeah, so you're not just using like that as a character model. That's actually life, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
As long as my boss isn't listening, yes.
Yeah. You know,
and I think song, no.
Yeah. I think the East Coast has a reputation for, you know, not being as laid back as maybe the West Coast and even the Midwest a little bit. So it's kind of like the states and cities and stuff that you mentioned are kind of like real congested and real, you know, dense, and just between navigating that life and work life and trying to have time to be a band, it's like, it's no wonder that we kind of write about the things that we write about.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I want to bring up in a little bit is kind of more the lyric stuff. But, you know, when I listen to the album, you know, I get vivid imagery. I hear stories in there. You know, it's not Bob Dylan to that level where he's just like, we'll tell a whole story about his, like somebody's life from beginning to end. But you get like these snippets in a person's life. Maybe it's like a month or a year or a day or whatever. And you can pretty much put yourself in this stuff in these situations. But I think that there's something to be said about that because, you know, not every band or not every album or not every song is going to necessarily have lyrics that convey something that are deeply instilled in that person or how they're feeling. Sometimes it'll be writing about somebody else, writing about completely fictional stuff, just getting a mood or a feeling, not even having lyrics that relate to anything. It could just be, garbage lyrics or, bunch of yammer, whatever you want to call it. But you guys do it in a way, obviously most of your songs are minute and a half, 2.5 minutes, somewhere in there. So you do it in a way where you're not stuffing it full of lyrics and you still get to the point and you still make a really good, solid story. So how do you find that that's possible? Because when I listen to it, I'm like, I get what's going on, but it's like by the time you figure out what's happening and really what the story is, it's already over.
Yeah, that's I primarily write most of the lyrics in the band. Bryan actually chipped in on a couple songs on this record, but like, yeah, the process for me, like it looks, I like to sing along while I play and
Sure.
and create I might come up with like a line or two that of something that I saw throughout the day or experienced throughout the day, and I'll kind of like build off that. So for instance, like the first song on the record, New Generation, is, I have a 9-year-old son, and I'm watching his friends like kind of become educated on the world. And
I was going to say become zombies to an iPad, but yeah.
that a little bit too. but like, watching the open-mindedness of my own kid, like more open-minded than I ever was at his age, or
Sure.
even aware than I ever was. Like New Generation kind of scratches at that, just like basically saying, hey, there's actually hope in what I'm seeing in these young people. And like, a lot of times people are dismissive and saying like, you don't know shit. But, I've got a kid who's 9, and I'm see kids all around the neighborhood who are like in their teens. And I'm like, this is the future, and we got to have faith in them. So like, give it up for the new generation of people that can carry the torch of positivity and change. So that was, one example. And then in I Am the Fire, that kind of pulls from a variety of different things, like experience anxiety, kind of feeling like you're a small particle in like a much larger world. And so there's some lyrics in that song that basically say, I am the late. Oh, I'm totally blanking on the lyric, my own lyrics. Help me out, Bryan. You know me
I
better
don't know
than
which part you're talking about.
It's all good. So basically, like that song kind of pulls at the elements of like earth. It says things like, I am ash, I am the fire, I'm the lake,
Dirt
like
and grime,
dirt and grime, and it's kind of pulling at like all these things that like I like nature a lot. So it kind of not only just like how beautiful it is, but how volatile it can be. And so like just kind of trying to translate things that I'm experiencing into music. And then as far as the shortness of the songs go, I think we've got our editor on the line with us.
Yeah, producer. I mean, I guess just to add on to that, I like to, I don't know, I think our music, I like to keep it so that it's like metaphorically punches you in the face and then just kind of steps away. Like we don't write a lot of long winding bridges or intros or things like that. They're just unnecessary in the style of music that we're trying to play. But I did want to add real quick. I think what you said about our music telling stories and being a narrative, that's a huge compliment. Because I think it's, in addition to some of the kind of punk bands that Steve mentioned being influenced by, I know we both listen to people that do tell stories through their music, and that probably carries through a little bit. People like Elvis Costello and Ben Folds. And I mean, geez, even one of my favorite bands is Old Primus. And
my God, love it.
They just, all of their songs are stories about individual characters and, a snippet of the day of their life or, something like that. And
yeah, Les Claypool is a master at like just fine tuning. Like he has such a weird imagination anyway, but he's really good at writing that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know how influenced by Primus Steve is, but it's definitely a favorite of mine. And, it like what I was saying, is just a huge compliment to hear like that coming through in our songs. And I don't know that it's something that we consciously tried to do, but just kind of from what we all listen to, it ends up there.
Yeah, and I think that Ben Folds reference is kind of an interesting one, because I remember listening to Ben Folds early on in my life, and just him talking about like going up the stairs and like checking in the door and like just like very specific things happening, like he's talking about what's actually happening. I'm like, that's a cool way to write, because not everybody writes it. It's like they'll just talk about the moment. Like I remember trying to figure out what the fuck Nirvana was ever talking about in most of their songs. I'm like, no idea. Like, this has got to be him just high. I don't really understand half of these songs, but yeah, like it was much clearer when I heard Ben Folds. I was like, oh, you can write songs like that? I guess you can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely there's like and all the bands Bryan mentioned, maybe aside from Primus, they have pop sensibility to them. Like Elvis Costello has been a huge influence for me my whole life. Like I probably discovered him when I was about 14, and just like ever since, like just I always dive into like his new stuff, and I like how it's kind of matured with him. And honestly, with me, like I like mellower music as well now. So like having like the whole, like every era of Elvis Costello kind of has some beautiful imagery and a lot of pop sensibility to it. So.
I mean, this is already starting out to be one of the most badass punk like interviews of all time, right? We're talking about Elvis Costello and Ben Folds and Primus. That I mean, I always think it's funny. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, especially drummers, who will tell you that if they were always only influenced by punk music in a punk band, they would be fucking terrible at what they do, because it's very easy just to do the and they would be so bored. They'd be like, oh my God, I got to quit because I'm going to go insane from doing the same thing. So it's always really interesting to see, like hearing like people be, friggin' whoever the influences are. It's off the wall most of the time, especially for punk drummers. It's like, oh yeah, I listen to like, I had Hans Gruber in the Die Hards, and he's like, I listen to a lot of Kuumba, and I'm like, of course you do. Like, you guys listen to Kuumba. So like, they're inspired by lots of different stuff. So I think if you just listen to punk music, you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff that you'd be influenced by that is going to bring a new sound to that. But I want to dig a little deeper in some of the lyrics as well. And you talked about a couple songs already, but there's like I said, there's not a lot of words in the songs necessarily, but like, for example, the song Death to Fire, it's literally a song, or maybe literally and metaphorically, about a person who basically makes dicey choices in life and somehow pulls it off. It's like, you're a lucky son of a bitch, right? Like when I listened to that song, I remember the movie Bullet Train with Brad Pitt and how he's just like goes through his whole like, hitman thing or whatever he's supposed to do. And like, he should be dead like 20 times over, but like he keeps getting saved and like shoots through the train at the end while like floating through the whole thing while it's crashing. I'm like, that's fucking insane. Like that's like in my head what I think of, because like those words could easily just be like, hey, let's license this for that part of the movie. But like, what do you actually do when you write the songs? Like, what's the process? Do you just sit down? Do you have a guitar first with some chords and a melody, or do you actually like write the songs out and then put it to words and stuff like that later?
Yeah. I guess like, so typically I use Google Keep as my note-taking application. And so like, if I have downtime riding as a passenger in a car, or if it's late night and I can't find sleep, like that's usually where I just jot down like thoughts and like, call it poetry, call it what you will. It might be like 3 lines, but I've definitely attempted to do like sleep deprived lyric writing before, which is like a weird choice, but it was, it was kind of amazing to be like up at like 2:30 in the morning. I'm like dead tired, but I have this concept and I'm like, I'm going to power through this, turn my phone off, and then see what it is in the morning. And, it has kind of yielded some good stuff, grab a few lines from whatever I wrote. But yeah, I tend to start with a little bit of lyric. And then, when it comes to writing like the actual chords and stuff, basically sitting down with that, and I'll just pull up my app, and I'll just be like, oh, that's like, those 2 lines are cool. And I'll just like kind of start structuring stuff around that. And typically where I started with the lyrics will be like, it will change because, I don't really know what the melody or the chords progressions will be until I start powering through it. But I tend to start with verses for some reason. I know like choruses are what people get hooked on, but like I just kind of like, I like to think about the story blocks on either side of that chorus, and then the chorus being like the most repeatable piece, which I'm still, honestly, it's like a practice because I could write a song that has no chorus or doesn't have a really standout moment that is a chorus, and I have to work on that sometimes to be like, what is going to make this like have an ear hook or an earworm, yeah, so that's kind of the process for me. But then we bring it to the lab, if you will, the practice space, and start hacking it to pieces. So I might come with something that's just a piece of it, like just a verse. Might come with something that's complete, but we typically like deconstruct it, rebuild it, and like work together on that process. I am not a good lead guitarist. I might have like the melody for a lead in my head, but typically I leave that to our skilled players. I just kind of come up with like a little bit of the baseline structure of the song.
Yeah. It sounds very familiar to like what I would do when I write a song, because like I almost always think of the story or like the concept first, and then I'm like struggle to figure out how to turn a chorus or something interesting into that. But you know, when like thinking of a key change or something like that, it's like, oh, let's try this, and then let's move this to the chorus, and then I'm like, okay, now that I've got a melody for the chorus, I can then write the lyrics. So it's pretty interesting. It just, some people will literally just write the melody or the chords first, or have a melody first and then write everything. Some people literally write it out as poetry and then retrofit it to music. So it's always interesting to kind of hear that, because you know, when somebody actually writes decent lyrics, you just kind of want to know more about how that process starts. But I do, did you have anything you wanted to add there, Bryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, sometimes our bassist or our other guitarist will actually have a riff that they bring to practice, and we'll start jamming on that, and Steve will say, oh, I think I've got something that might fit with that, and he'll go into his app and find those couple lines that he's put together as just words, and you know, try to put that to a riff that he didn't even write. You know, so that's kind of a neat way that things come together, and that's when we kind of like hack it up and say, oh, you need two fewer syllables, or whatever it may be. And
stop trying to fit so much in there.
Yeah.
They're probably like, when I get weird at the space, is like I don't have words and I'm just like, just like making noises and like
are you having a stroke?
The process at home is much more you know, like I'm in my lonesome, so when I'm at the studio, it's funny to be a little bit more on display and like being, you know, almost like a jukebox, like sing that part, you know, like let's hear what you were thinking. It's like, okay, so
come on, dance monkey, let's go.
I know, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but you know, I do appreciate you saying you like the lyrics. It means a lot. I mean, you know, these songs took some time to write. Like we started them in the pandemic and kind of carried them through till we recorded this whole thing. So it's great to hear that you're enjoying the stories and the lyrics in there.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I wanted to bring up was something I don't like. Not every band does this that well. A lot of times when somebody goes into a recording studio, the energy that they usually play, like in a live setting or even in the rehearsal studio, doesn't really seem to translate over to the recording. But you guys actually did this pretty well. I was pretty blown away by the energy that actually came through on the recording. So, you know, I would say, like, do you have any thoughts? Like, do you go into the studio with an idea? Is this something that like the producers or anybody you're working with has like in their mind, or is there some trick that you guys do that others may not think about to be able to pull this off?
I mean, I'll say recording the drums, you know, we typically do a scratch guitar track, not any kind of studio wizardry there, just something that happens. And it's usually actually pretty distorted, not like just like a clean like MIDI file or anything. It's I intentionally keep it loud and distorted and just kind of like play on the feel of how it would sound live, kind of, you know, loud and blown out, so that I can match that intensity when I record the drums. So that's something I definitely do intentionally. I can't say if other folks do that or not, but I've definitely had members of the band or the studio engineer go in and listen to my playback while I'm recording drums and like, or like, how the hell do you do this? Because it's just loud and distorted and like blown out.
Yeah. He's like, all I do is just turn this volume right here up a little bit.
My ears are bleeding. We're good. Yeah. Without Bryan laying that foundation, like, I don't think we'd each be able to layer on that intensity. Yeah, like, and then this record in particular, Scars, like we recorded it at a professional studio here in DC. It's Ivacoda, and we had Ben Green on the board. He's from a emo band back in the day called Fairweather, and he's been recording lots of DC bands, and so you know, he works with like, and his friends are bands like Be Well and like other heavier bands like Loud Boys. I don't know if you know Loud Boys from DC, but like he tends to have a heavier edge to what he's recording. And so like, we thought that would be a good fit for us. Cause like, even though we're melodic and poppy, like just, we kind of try to bring that intensity to the stage. So
yeah,
it worked out really well to be paired up with him. Feel great about that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a great choice, however it goes down, but like that amount of energy, like, yeah, like most people, if I want, the song to have more energy, I just go into the master and I just push that feeder all the way up to the top. I'm like, yeah, now it sounds like it's got energy in there. I'm like, I recorded this so freaking boringly. God damn it. But yeah,
you're fine, dude. Don't worry about it. There's a ton of tricks, I'm sure.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing that happened during essentially after the recording and production of this, but you guys were supposed to put this out on AF Records, right? And
Yes.
Obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, that fell through because essentially Anti-Flag just disbanded after the rumors of the allegations, I should say, of Justin, the lead singer, being accused of assaulting a bunch of women over years. Like, what kind of impact did you guys have, both personally within the band and looking at that situation, and then what else did you guys have to think about for actually getting this album put out? Like, were you just scrambling the whole time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that week was unfortunate in a lot of ways. We had several kind of band Zoom meetings and FaceTime sessions and things like that. That week, we literally posted our first video and put the record up for pre-sale through AF. And our record was, I hate to keep using the word literally, but it was literally being pressed at the factory that week. So a lot of things swirling around. It was a total roller coaster because obviously we were very, very excited to be on the kind of like one of the best punk labels that was, started by a band that we all liked and, all respected. Our first video, our new record for pre-sale, and then that news broke, and it was disheartening to all of us, to say the least. And obviously thinking about the first woman that kind of came forward there that week, and it obviously dominoed from there. But we decided that we could not, in good faith, move forward with that band's name on our material. And like I said, it was already there. Like, it was up for pre-sale on their site. It was being pressed, into vinyl with their logo on the label. And it wasn't a decision we made lightly, but it was one we made fairly quickly, honestly, that it was not the right thing to move forward with. And, it was validating, I guess, to hear a lot of our peers that were also on that label kind of come forth and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And, that ultimately led to that label not continuing anymore. So
our hearts go out to Christina, who was the first victim to come forward. And there's a Rolling Stone article that verifies a lot of other sad situations around that. So
yeah, I read that.
It was awful.
Pretty intense. Yeah.
And, the investigative journalism on that article was really important to, making sure that this didn't continue. In the wake of that, we decided to donate a portion of our record sales to Dash, which is a nonprofit in DC that helps people who've been victims of assault or in abusive households. And when we were approaching other labels with what we had, we wanted to make sure that we paired up with a place that felt equally felt like that was an important piece of it. So we started working with Smart Punk, which has been great, honestly. Like the ability for them to sort of help us repress the jackets, get things back on track, help with our pre-order distribution, and furthermore, like distribution to record stores and other things across the globe. Like, it's been super helpful for us to be to be working with them, and like I can't express how much I appreciate that they were able to keep it on track. Like we did not change our release date, and we did probably like a month's worth of, or probably 5 months worth of work with them in like a week and a half. So it was awesome to be able to like turn that into to keep ourselves on track and respect the situation and be able to like show that we actually don't want to be affiliated with something that's awful, and it's been a part of our ethics forever to stand with victims, to and you can hear it in our songs, like we're somewhat political, and we're not afraid to like speak out against things that are awful in this world. And so we wanted to show that like we weren't just talk.
And I mean, the one good thing about it is it seems like in times of like crisis, the punk community seems to be able to handle that better than most, because it seems like there's always somebody willing to help you whenever some shit hits the fan. Like I remember, like, for example, like last year, the When We Were Young Fest got canceled on the first day because it was windy here in Las Vegas. And all of a sudden there's like 30 pop-up shows in Las Vegas. That's where I'm from. So it's like one of the things. Like all of a sudden, got 300 people at a bar, in downtown Las Vegas that never would have had that many people. And so it's very interesting that like, the community finds a way to help those when shitty things happen. And, obviously, the shittiest things are happening to the women that are being assaulted, clearly. But there's this whole knock-on effect of all these other people that are affected, including you guys, other bands. I've talked to other labels that picked up other bands from this exact same scenario who are releasing music this year. I'm like, Jesus, like without you guys like stepping in here and helping bands out, like there's going to be a lot of screwed people. And it's just, awesome that somebody's going to help, jump in and save this from being a catastrophe. So
it probably stems from that DIY. I mean, like we've always, like we are on a label now, but it's a punk rock label. We're not on like Sony.
Exactly.
Like, there's a lot of DIY that goes with what we do, even through being on a label. Like we produced our own music video, we're paying for things out of pocket prior to like, having label backing and stuff. And like, it's been, it is a DIY journey. And this is one of the bands that Bryan and I have been in our lifetimes. I'm sure like collectively we've been in like over a dozen. And so we've always been like, hey, how do we figure this out? How do we do it affordably and artistically and representative of what we want? And so like, I think that same mentality just permeates punk rock. So you have like, it's just going to happen like that people step in and make it a good thing out of a horrible situation.
Yeah. And I think that's been the case since probably even the early 80s. DIY has been punk rock's theme, right? I mean, most all punk rock albums, even most punk labels are DIY, independent labels. Some of them get bigger later, but most of them start from scratch. So, not catering and not kowtowing to, like you said, like a bigger record company, right?
Sure.
Cool. Well, I do want to take a quick break, but I would love to play the video for the song Bittersweet. So during this break, I want to do that. I'm going to ask on air, so that way YouTube, Spotify, they don't say, oh, we can't play that shit on our whatever. But do I have full permission from you guys to play Bittersweet, the music video, and so that way people can hear this on the show?
Absolutely. Play
100%. It. Yes, please.
All right. So here's the new single from American Television called Bittersweet. And we'll be back right after this to bring the guys in the spotlight with some hot seat questions. That should be a lot of fun. We'll see you right after this.
Gave you all I could, feel defeated.
lay me out on the floor, broken bones and boiled blood. Still I come back for more, broken bones and boiled blood. You lay me out on the floor, broken bones and boiled blood. Still I come back for more, come back for more, come back for more. Still I come back for more. Come back for more.
Welcome back to the Power by Rock podcast. I'm here with Steve and Bryan from American Television to put them in the hot seat with some weird ass questions. So, guys, are you ready to be put in the spotlight?
Yeah,
No.
hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see what we can do.
All right. So, as we talked about in the first segment, you guys aren't technically from DC, but you are based there. And the first question is a two-part question. So, as a DC-based band, I want to know essentially how many hours do you estimate you've spent listening to Fugazi songs? And second, if you have a gun to your head, what Fugazi song would you say is your favorite?
I think that's going to come to me.
Yeah.
I got, let's see, in on the Kill Taker when I was 15 years old, and kind of expanded out from there. Number of hours, I mean, thousands probably listening to Fugazi.
Yeah.
Was fortunate enough to get to see them. I know they have not played in quite some time. So
Yeah, like 2003 or something.
Yeah, in my youth was fortunate to see them a handful of times. And this is probably gonna sound cheesy, but if I had to pick my favorite Fugazi song, it's Merchandise, which is the song that we covered on that Adolescence covers EP that we did.
Nice. It makes sense that it was on there.
Yeah.
And Steve, did you spend much time listening to Fugazi before you moved down to DC?
Oh, well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I would say I was much deeper into Minor Threat if we're talking about like the connections to Fugazi.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in getting to know Bryan over the last 10 years, he's definitely turned me on to more of it. And like, I probably have the most generic answer of all time, but Waiting Room is probably like my favorite song. I think it's, it's just, when it comes on, like actually I ride BMX and like at like a track and they even play it there. So like when it comes on, I'm like, oh shit, like it's so good that it's like getting on like these mainstream avenues. And I always loved, like the one thing that I loved about of the history of Fugazi in general is just like the ethics of just being like, yeah, we're not gonna do what you tell us to. We're gonna do it our way, and like whether that takes twice the amount of time, we're gonna do it the way that we think is the right way. And I think that's like a pretty commendable thing. So like Ian has always been that way. So Fugazi. But as far as hours go, I mean, I've taken a spin on all the records, but I would say like the Bryan's gonna think I'm a nut. The red album, whatever the name of that one is.
Okay, yeah, I can't remember it either. But
It's the first that has Waiting Room on it. Right?
Yes.
It's 13 songs.
There
It's
you go,
the first
13
two
songs.
That's what
EPs
he did.
together. Yeah.
So I just crucified myself in the punk rock community that I don't even know the name of the record.
Wait, I'll throw myself under the bus because I didn't even realize, and here's how stupid I am, that Ian MacKaye was in Minor Threat and Fugazi. I just never fucking even paid attention. I was like, I know Minor Threat, I know Fugazi. I never really like made any sort of connection. I was like, oh shit! Like literally when I was looking up stuff, I was like, wait, what? Oh, oh my god! Like this was like 2 days ago. I figured this out. I was like, oh fuck me.
Sounds like we need to grab a beer.
Yeah,
we got to figure.
Wait, I
this
can
out.
listen to music for that long or whatever. Like I'm not. I won't say I'm like I'm deep into either band, but like I've listened to them, I've heard them, I've heard of them. And just to never even make any connection, I guess, because I just never dug deeper than just listening to the music, that I had no idea that it was the same lead singer. It's interesting. So
yeah, I mean, living around here, he's still a presence. Like he still comes to shows. It's still, honestly, even as a elder punk member here, like it means something when he's at your show. I mean, to me, like if he shows up, he came to see us at Fort Reno, like when we
in
played
DC,
there.
he's like a demigod.
Yeah, so it's just, I've talked to him, I've chatted with him, like he's very approachable.
Nice.
But he's still because of the ethics that Steve talked about and getting into that music at such a young age. Is still someone that I look up to, but it's nice that he's just kind of around and
yeah, that's very
still
cool.
in it.
All right, so number 2 in this hot seat is going to maybe throw a little spanner in here. So maybe to make the last question even more or maybe less difficult to answer, in a 3-way battle of DC punk supremacy, who are you taking if you can only listen to one of these 3 bands for the rest of your life? Bad Brains, Fugazi, or Minor Threat?
I'm going Minor Threat.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's Fugazi for me.
Yeah, I would say Fugazi out of the 3.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I love all 3 of them. But if you can only pick one of the 3, it's Fugazi. Just they were the first one of those 3 that I got into, so it's just more of a sentimental connection that I have with their music over the other 2. Not that I don't with those 2, but it's just you asked the question, so we got to pick one.
Yeah, I would say historically I've probably listened to Bad Brains the most, but maybe that's why I would say I want to listen to Fugazi for the rest of my life, because I haven't listened to them as much as I have Bad Brains, which is interesting.
I've probably listened to Minor Threat the most out of those 3.
Yeah.
I know I gave a pretty high hours number of Fugazi listens on the last question, but I probably have listened to Minor Threat more. But
Nice.
like I said, just kind of a deeper sentimental kind of emotional connection with Fugazi, because they were the first of those 3 that I really got into.
It's a lot easier to get through the Minor Threat discography than Fugazi.
That's true.
It's a little bit shorter.
Yeah. We're here for a couple years and then we're going to change things around. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, I know like they every year somebody's like, when's Fugazi coming back? Like, it's been that way for like 20 years now, and they keep saying we're not going to do it under these pretenses or whatever, but we may. And they leave the door open, but it's like, after 20 years, I'm pretty much giving up hope on it.
I hear they still practice. Like, I don't know if these are just like urban legends or whatever, but like I hear that they still practice on like a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
And, they have that discussion, and
I mean, they're definitely all still around.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan and Joe play in the Mesthetics together, who play around town pretty regularly and put an album out on Discord like within recent history. So, would love to see it. I kind of don't think it's going to happen, but I also I never thought Jawbox would reunite either, and they did and have and continue to play. So
there's definitely other bands that have been out for 20 years that are now making new albums again. So yeah, it's entirely possible.
Very true.
All right.
Was it you who just had Diesel Boy on?
Yeah.
They were talking. Yeah, they were talking about like how they kind of came back, and
I want to say it was 20 years or damn close to that too for them. So, and then like Cigar, their first album was like in 1998. So it was like however many years that is, 24 or something like that between releases.
Got a Piebald shirt on. Like we got to play with them when they started to play back again. So like that was probably like a 15 or 20 year hiatus. But yeah, man, it's like the power of music will always pull you back. Like we're getting old, but I'm sure we'll be doing this for another 20 years. It's
because they just love the money so much. That's why they love making all that money. Yeah.
The luxury van and all that we're hitting the road in.
Yeah. I love buying shit that I don't need so I can go tour around with a bunch of smelly old dudes. All right. Question number 3. If there were a competition between the band members to see who's truly the best at something, and you all have equally similar skill levels, what are you guys competing in and who reigns supreme? For example, you guys might be able to eat the same number of hot dogs or something, but someone will like figure out how to eat more. So like any sort of competition. I was going to say like, a blood battle to the death or something like that, but we'll keep it to anything that you guys think would be a fair fight. And then who do you think is going to come out on top?
I feel like, all right. So sometimes we go out for tacos before practice. And so if we were in a taco eating competition, no knocks on Bryan, but I actually, maybe this is in your favor. I don't know how you want to view it. You could eat more tacos than anybody. I'm going to say Bryan wins, because even though I can house the tacos, I've seen this man do double breakfast at like 2:00 in the morning after a show. So I think you could do it, man. I think you could take us all down.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not a great thing to brag about, but I could definitely eat more food than anybody in the band. Yeah, it's
Well, what if it
yeah,
was like super spicy food? Does
no,
anybody have like? No?
yeah, that's
Oh,
not me. Yeah,
So we have a new member, Chris, and I don't know if he's into spicy food, but I definitely can go spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So your
when
pain tolerance is higher, but your eating
volume.
abilities is
Yeah,
lower.
yeah, but I'm willing to like cry through a meal if necessary. Like when I was this reminds me of like I was probably at like Fest 14 or something, and we went to Reggae Shack, which is like a Jamaican place, and I was eating their jerk chicken, and the sauce on it was so unbelievably hot that I was crying. Like I was
Yeah.
just and then I'm like, shit. I gotta get to a show, man. I gotta get out of here. Like sweating my food out while I'm like going to see like Painted Black or something that year.
That's
It's just like nuts.
I definitely sweat my food out, but it's in a different. It doesn't come from my eyes. So
It's like, this is just a damn workout. Had to lift a spoon so many times already. Yeah, I was just thinking about it earlier today. I was about to text some of my friends and be like, does anybody here feel like they're in the best shape of their life for a food eating competition? Because I'm like, that's about the thing that at this point in my life, I can't run fast, I can't jump high, but I can eat like a lot of food all in one sitting. All right, so let's talk about question number 4. So here is another DC question for you. Who's your least favorite politician of all time? I mean, you got like Andrew Jackson, you got Trump, obviously.
I know, right?
You got like Mitch McConnell. You got all sorts of people. You could even go like other countries if you want. You know, Kim Jong-un and and however you want to think about it. But yeah, technically, are they politicians? I guess they're elected somewhat.
Man.
Putin.
Like
golly, I mean, there's been so many, but like this new class of assholes, like Boebert and Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and all of them are just like, they are awful human beings who don't stand for anything, who don't believe in anything, and
But they know what they don't want. That's about it.
yeah,
They don't want you to talk to Democrats. Then you're out.
yeah.
Freaking
I
Kevin
mean,
McCarthy.
yeah,
yeah.
So it's just, I mean, and that obviously it was all spurred by Trump. I mean, I don't want to give him the airwaves
Give him the accolade of being the worst.
But like,
I wouldn't even call him a politician, but man, he's a piece of shit.
golly, it's a tough question because I mean, like, DeSantis is a piece of shit. Here in
I'm sensing
Virginia,
a common theme of you know
yeah.
hard right Republicans as being pretty
our
much
Governor
fucking
Youngkin
awful.
is a piece of shit. Like, I mean, and he's starting to get national credit and airtime, and it's just for things that are hurtful to people that I care about, and it's I don't know, it's hard to watch, man.
I think the interesting thing about Republicans is they wear like, you know, far right and hard right and ultra conservative like as a badge of honor, whereas like if you do that on the opposite side, like ultra, you know, progressive or left leaning, people are like kind of ashamed of that. They're like, no, I'm more middle ground than that. Like you just see me as that because you're so far over here.
It's like
I just don't think anything that's like far anything is a good thing. Like don't go too far right or don't go too far left because you look like a fucking asshole either way.
The going so far to the right that you're like a conspiracy, like you're not believing in like aliens exist or whatever the more tangible conspiracy theories are. You're getting into like crazy shit. Like what was I?
Well, we're all
reading
going to
today?
turn into zombies today when that
Yes. I was
when
just going to say that.
the nationwide alert went off on our phones today. Sorry to hate this podcast, but
it was
it was like people thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, and I was reading like that if you didn't wear I was reading this. I saw a stupid screenshot. I don't go into right wing conspiracy theories.
He's on the dark web. He's reading all
But yeah, it was like if you don't wear tinfoil and that goes off, you're gonna like get this random virus that's gonna kill you. And I joked to my friend over text today. I was like, so if you didn't die because of catching this 5G virus and you are sitting there with tinfoil on, are you considered a leftover? So yeah, man, it's you know this whole class of folks that are doing horrible things, not apologizing, not resigning, which used to be like common, like that if you fucked up, you resigned. Like Trump, I blame Trump entirely. I would say I don't really want to consider him a politician, but he set this tone that it's just like, no, you're never wrong. And, they're assholes and we're right. And it's just like, it's created a horrible situation. And I've always believed if you're not moving more toward equality, then you're not going in the right direction. So if you're trying to roll back gay rights and trying to, roll back reproductive rights, like, then you're definitely going in the wrong direction, in my opinion.
Yeah. History will definitely look at you incorrectly later on and be like, you're fucking garbage. But it all comes back to fucking blaming Obama, because he was the one at the that lunch or that dinner or whatever that like said, oh, I can't believe like Trump's running for president. Like, obviously he's not going to make it. And then like 4 years later, he's like, fuck you, I'm going to do it again. And he came back and won. It was like, God damn it, Obama, why you got to pour gas on the fire? But yeah. So as everything, it's either Hitler's fault or Obama's fault. So there you go. All right. So last question in the hot seat is one that I've been asking all bands lately is what four musicians would you put on your personal Mount Rushmore of either being influential or being your favorite? So again, they don't have to be four different players. So they don't have to be a bass, drum, guitar, and singer. They could be all drummers if you want, but who would you put on your Mount Rushmore?
Mine's going to be weird. I don't know if you want to go first, but
go for it, Steve.
All right. So one of them I'm going to have to think about as I talk, but okay. So huge influence on me, Gordon Gano from the Violent Femmes. Like, probably one of the earliest bands that I adopted as like my own music. Like, for many years I was listening to like classic rock and things in the car with my parents, but Violent Femmes, like, I want to say my sister came home with their debut album, and I just fell in love with it. And there's a lot of punk rock, sort of like it's folk punk, but there's a lot of that in there. So Gordon Gano. We mentioned Elvis Costello earlier, also an early influence. Just like, if you want, do you want me to give reasons why? Is that helpful?
Whatever you want to
do. Yeah, like I just think like there's that moment on SNL that most people probably know about, but like where he was told not to play Radio, and like he went ahead and did it anyway, just to be like, yeah, whatever. And he's been banned from, I don't think he's ever been back, but he's been banned ever since. Like, just like that, even though he was achieving such like status at that point, he still was like, I don't want to play by the industry rules. And that was kind of a nice thing that I like look at. Okay, here's where things probably start to get like more hard, because I don't know if I have my fourth one deck yet. But Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, like always political. I've gotten a chance to see them 3 times in my life, and
never got to see him yet, and that's
Steve and I went to this last tour 6 months
they
ago.
canceled the Vegas one because like they were like, oh well, we obviously COVID or something hit and they had to reschedule, and then they're like, oh, we're just not going to do Vegas again. I was like,
he tore his ACL and he was sitting down for our show, but the way, because they're in an arena, they're like filming it tight on his face. It looked like he was rocking out. So if you didn't just watch him sitting on a box, like it felt like he was running around the stage. So very political. The messages in all of those songs still hold, and like, it's like almost like embarrassing that they still hold. Like, what is going on?
I mean, he wasn't just talking about stuff that had just happened either. I mean, some of that stuff happened hundreds of years before he was talking about it. So the fact that it still is going on is absolutely insane.
It's insane. So just like love, and just what an insane band. Like, no one sounded like that.
No,
like ever. And still to this day, you can't point to a band who's like a Rage band. Like, oh, that's a Rage knockoff. There is none.
Everybody else is new metal, and Rage Against the Machine is just Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah. And then I'll probably bring it back to like punk rock for the last person. I would say Milo Ackerman, like just, has always just like, he leads this sort of duality. He's like, he was a scientist and he's also a punk rock musician. And I like really respect people who like, you know, not only are they like talented in music, but they're also like intelligent and like are pursuing something else. I think there's, you know, for me, it was something that I struggled with when I was younger, where it's like I really enjoyed music, but I was afraid that it wouldn't be like a viable career option. I had lots of friends. My friend Julio actually just won a Grammy for producing Olivia Rodrigo's record. So like,
Wow.
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm sorry, my friend Dan. Julio's my other friend who's on tour constantly playing arenas. And like, these are two people I grew up with, and they're like, I knew I wasn't as good as them. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, I've validated my thoughts, my early thinking, because I too, like, I'm a graphic designer, but music came back around later for me. And, you know, it really supplements and my creativity and just creates like a catharsis, like a release. And that's like, it's so meaningful for me to be like, to sort of manifest in that way.
Yeah.
So I really like that Milo also like lives that duality.
Yeah. What about you, Bryan?
All right, I wrote a couple names down. There's more than 4, so I'm going to make up my mind.
Oh shit! Let's play by the rules here.
Yeah, as I go through, and I'll knock some folks off.
You're just going to chisel them in there and be like,
yeah, okay. They're set in stone, as it were. So the first we've already kind of talked about at length is going to be Ian. You know, from Fugazi and Minor Threat and Embrace and all of those bands. Just again, hearing that music for the first time as a teenager, just kind of defined what independent music and punk, if you want to call it that, counterculture, if you want to call it that, was all about, and kind of like setting up your own way of doing things. Was just he's a definite one. Number 2, this one's kind of from left field a little bit, but just like love his music and his whole attitude and his whole vibe, is Mike Patton from Faith No More.
I thought you were going to say Weird Al. Because I know we share that love.
It's on the list. We'll see if he makes the cut or not. But yeah, Mike Patton. Just I've been a huge Faith No More fan. And just they do things that are, you know, they're on major labels, but they do things that major labels would advise them not to do, and just kind of like the music just sticks with me. Man, I'm gonna throw a head that's split in 2. That's John and John from They Might Be Giants. Is just another band that I grew up loving. Side note, it's on my online dating profile, both my wife and I had They Might Be Giants listed as the top of our favorite bands that we like. And it was one of the reasons that we connected there. So they've had more of an influence on my life than just music. So I'll throw them there. I
thought you were going to say it's still on my dating profile.
No, it's been shut down. Man, and then I have another like 4 names on here. Let's see. I wanted to give him an honorable mention, but honestly, it's the reason that I started playing drums is Dave Grohl. Like, you know, when Nirvana hit, and it's just like, this music is, I can do this. And obviously Dave Grohl is a much better drummer than he displayed on Nevermind there. But, you know, just kind of like that.
The way that he packed the drums into those songs.
Yeah,
it isn't a minor feat by any means. I mean, there is some quite literal good skill in there that is just being added to a very solid rock beat, right?
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, that's the reason I started playing drums. So to overlook that in a musical, influential Mount Rushmore, I can't do it. So he has to go on there.
Sorry, Weird Al, with your big
sorry, Weird Al.
Sit on the mountain.
I love Weird Al. He's down looking up at it, and
like, you Dave Grohl. All right, well, that's it. The spotlight is off, and we'll be back in just a few moments to stick a fork in this episode with some exciting news about what American television having coming up for the rest of the year. So stick around. We'll be back right after this. Running your own music career is incredibly difficult. Trying to get people to like, share, comment, listen, follow. It's all just overwhelming. Most musicians give up before they ever achieve success, and that's the worst. If you're looking for a better way to grow your music career, head to DIYrockcareer.com for some absolutely free training. It costs you nothing, and it could be the difference between hitting your goals and quitting your dream. Go to DIYrockcareer.com today by clicking the link below this episode.
Then I lost my way.
Welcome back to the Powered by Rock podcast. So let's talk about American television, what you guys have coming up. I know you guys have obviously just released an album. You did, I think, a record release show the day after from memory. But do you guys have some shows coming up, and what else you guys got coming up for the horizon?
Yes, we know what the rest of our year looks like, which is great.
I know you're playing one particular place in Florida at some point, I believe, from memory, correct?
Not this year. I think.
You're not playing
Fest.
Okay.
We are not playing Fest this year. We decided to take a year off, but we plan to go back next year.
Florida sucks anyway.
That weather-wise, that time of year is perfection. But yeah, otherwise Florida does suck. I wish my dad understood that before he moved there. Yeah, so actually in a week or so, next week we go out on the road, and we're going to Raleigh, North Carolina. We're going to play School Kids Records. Then when next night on the 14th, we're in Norfolk at the Tap House. And on the 15th, we're at the Camel in Richmond. All of these dates are with our buddies in X'd Out. X'd Out's a Richmond band that features some ex-members of Smoker Fire. So we're super psyched to get out with them and pile into a van and eat as many tacos and prove Bryan correct that he can actually win that taco competition. Do you want to talk about November, Bryan?
Sure. Yeah, and then we're doing another kind of Weekend Warrior thing in mid-November. We're going up to Brooklyn. We're playing at Gold Sounds on, I think it's Thursday the 9th or something like that. I don't have my calendar up in front of me.
You got it right.
Yep. And then we're going to Philadelphia to play at Creep Records. And then we are playing at the new Skid Row Garage venue in York, Pennsylvania. So we're pretty stoked on that. That's going to be our first time up there. And then wrapping it up with a show in Baltimore put on by our friends at Feed the Scene. Nice. So kind of cool. Two weekend runs. We talked about before how, this is mostly a hobby. We try to do as much as we can, but we all have work and family and stuff like that. So, but we wanted to, with the new record that just came out, kind of give it its due and get a little run from it while we can. So, doing 2 weekends between now and the end of the year.
Yeah. And that second weekend's with Over Our Eyes from Baltimore.
Nice. Very cool. I was going to say, you mentioned that you're going to York, so maybe you guys could have a peppermint patty eating contest while you're there.
Oh, I would do that.
Yeah.
Mini or full size?
You could, don't they have like a frozen one too, like an ice cream one that you could try as well? I think they got a frozen like ice cream kind of thing too, but
maybe. I know some people keep them in the freezer.
Yeah, I definitely used to do that, but I thought then they like Snickers has like one too, and so does Twix, but I thought that they made a frozen one too, but I could be wrong. Either way,
I've never had
hockey puck.
Yeah. So obviously we'll add some links to you guys' music in the show notes below this episode, your social media, stuff like that. Do you have any other like plugs, shout outs, or anything else that you want to say before we go today?
Yeah, I would say we mentioned our new record a lot in this episode. It's available on smartpunk.com. Just go in there. There's some really awesome variants that they're offering. And they've also got some t-shirts. One of them is yellow and the other is our album art. So head on over to smartpunk.com.
Nice. And the album art is pretty cool too. It's getting stabbed in the back by a woman there. So it doesn't look like a stab in the back when I do it like that.
Actually, I have a copy over here. Just give me 1 second because I will show off what's really unique about the cover. Hopefully you can see it. See how it shimmers there? The roses are actually...
it's got like the holographic type of thing on it.
Yeah, it's called spot gloss. So the roses are printed just glossy on black and they kind of pop off when you catch the light. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that artwork is done by a local artist. His company name is Rockets Are Red. So if you look him up on Instagram, he's got a lot of cool stuff. He does a lot of... He does some poster work for like things at the 930 Club, like Menzinger's posters and Lord Jane Grace and Gaslight Anthem. So he's got some really cool artwork up there. And yeah, he was great to work with for the album art.
We weaseled
Very
our
cool.
way into the Rockets Are Red canon.
Yeah. You guys didn't use AI to create your album art, which is great.
No, it has all 5 fingers.
Yeah. So one last question before we sign off. What new music would you guys recommend somebody check out? So just one band or one song or one album, but let's say within the last 365 days.
Nice. I'm pulling up my Spotify real quick.
Yeah.
I know what I've been rocking. I just don't know what year it came out. I don't know if it was last year. I've been listening to Samiam's new record a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like it's called Stowaway, and it did come out this year. So I'm in the time frame that you're asking.
Yeah.
It's so good, and there's like sleeper tracks on there that are just amazing. So like, just listen to it from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I love a band that like even in their later years is putting out like some of their best work ever.
Yeah. I don't think I've listened to that one yet, which is interesting because I know Sam I Am. I just didn't even know there was a new album by them. So I'll have to check
It's
it
real
out.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I would, I guess, want to shout out. There's a local band that we did a show with a couple months ago that I've just loved their songs. They're a band called Peak Bloom from here in DC, and they put out an EP a couple months ago. It's up on Bandcamp and probably Spotify. I'm not sure, but yeah, they're a DC area band, and they were just I just like it a lot.
Cool. I'm gonna write this down so I don't forget it later. Peak Bloom, is that like PEAK?
Yeah, it's it refers to we have the cherry blossoms here in DC.
Gotcha.
So it's a DC centric name, which is great for them.
Nice.
Just it's when you should go look at the cherry blossoms. It's Peak Bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank today's guests, obviously Steve and Bryan from American Television, for being on the show today, talking about the new album Scars. Make sure to go to the show notes below this episode to go check out the stream or go buy the album. Obviously, you saw the cover there. It's a freaking awesome album, and it was a lot of fun to have you guys on the show. So make sure you go to the show notes below and check everything out. And obviously, hopefully you like the music video that we played for you in the middle. Always a little bit of humor helps to kind of get people on your side, right?
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. Thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much,
guys,
Isaac.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here. And guys, remember that the Powered by Rock podcast is powered by our listeners. So to show us some support, please be sure to subscribe and share the podcast on social media. Use guys can see the full interview on our YouTube channel and Spotify now as well. If you want to check out some of our awesome content, our merch and gear, head to poweredbyrock.com to see what's good there. That's our show for today. I'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.